In the White House, President Eisenhower signs the proclamation that makes Alaska's entry into the Union official, nearly 92 years after Lincoln's Secretary of State bought the territory from the Russian Tsar for $7 million.
The Alaska Wild Project podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Barney's Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. The exclusive home of frontier gear built for the rugged Alaskan terrain. Your one-stop shop for all your outdoor needs. Visit Barney's today at 906 West Northern Lights.
Tailored Restoration 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Hit them up at tailoredrestorationalaska.com.
Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience.
TheTreehouseAK.com, located at 341 Boniface Parkway, Alaska's own and grown cannabis and CBD store. Ask the bud tender what the strain of the day is to get your 10% off. The Treehouse, where the culture lives. AKO Farms, located in Sitka, Alaska, built from the ground up with concentrates as their single motivation, with exclusive products such as their sugar wax, full spectrum diamond sauce carts, and more. Ask your local bud tender about AKO. Marijuana has intoxicating effects and may be habit-forming and addictive. Marijuana impairs concentration, coordination, and judgment. Do not operate a vehicle or machinery under the influence. There are health risks associated with consumption of marijuana. For the use of only by adults 21 and older. Keep out of the reach of children, and marijuana should not be used by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding.
The Bait Shack, located on Ship Creek upstream of the bridge. Can't miss the bright red shack. They are the go-to fishing gear rental and guide service on Ship Creek. Tight lines and fish on. Come hook into the action with them. Hit them up at thebaitshackak.com.
Snow Pro AK, your snow and ice management company specializing in business and residential properties. They know what it takes to keep your property presentable and safe. Give them a call for a free estimate at 280-7098 or visit lawnproak.com. Double Shovel Cider Company, located off of Arctic and 58th, handcrafted Alaskan-made colonial ciders. They also have a tap room downtown on the corner of 5th and E. Stop by today and taste an award-winning cider.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaskan public lands, waters, and wildlife. Their goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping our public lands wild. Stand up today and join BHA at backcountryhunters.org. So how long were you, there you go. How long were you in the building before you decided to actually jump out?
I was there after the earthquake started. It was less than 30 seconds later, and I was down.
You were like, this doesn't seem like it's going to stop. I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you threw the chair out and just came right after it?
Yeah, I held on to the chair.
You did? All right.
Because I didn't want to carve myself all the way up. So I just, it went pretty quick because, but then the 7-story control tower comes crashing 50 yards in front of me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard, I've heard lots of stories about the 64 earthquake, but never any at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the control tower came down.
It's in the book.
It's in the book.
And there's it's even a picture in it. I think I'll show it you.
You know, when we had that earthquake in 2018 or whatever, even though it wasn't that crazy, a lot of things you don't hear about, and I'm curious, Chris, how your experience was, is when you're done with the earthquake and you realize you need to go home or wherever you're supposed to go.
Yeah. How
was the travel?
Well, it was very circuitous because I had an old Volkswagen there, and I decided after I first helped to pull some people from underneath the control tower. There was only a few people. It was Good Friday, late afternoon. Most of the flights had left, and so there was about just a half a dozen people there, and you heard the screaming of people under the tower, and the traffic control himself was and he got killed, and several people got. But then there were some people. The flight kitchen was in the bottom of that control tower, and so that's first. That's when we heard as I came back after things settled down. Finally, after 5 minutes, and had run way out on the runway, and then I came back and heard people underneath that tower there that were caught, and so a few people were able to pull out, but the rest they had to wait till the equipment came, and then the manager there from Northwest Airlines says he has it now. The control security is coming, and more help and medics. So he says, I guess now it's. But he was very appreciative that at the beginning a few of us got underneath the tower there and tried to pull him out, and then I headed back to Anchorage. My home was at 11th and C Street. I had a 2-bedroom home there that I rented, but it took. I was able to drive to it, but several times I had to make detours and go back.
Because the road was broken or.
And just before I left, the Northwest Airline manager, which ran the flight kitchen at that time, he said, Chris, come back tomorrow, because I said I couldn't lock the office, the safe and everything. Come back tomorrow. And also, not only then be able to probably crawl into the office and lock things up, but he says, and you can take as much food as you want to take with you, because it's all the freezers, everything is kaput. And he says, so get as many steaks and chickens and butter and whatever else. And so I did load up my Volkswagen left and right after the next day. But then at home, of course, no refrigerator either. But I had a big doghouse, and I shoved it all in, and then I put ice and snow in there. That was my refrigerator.
Luckily, it was still cool enough.
Yeah, smart thinking.
Wow.
Smart thinking.
So were you flying out of town, or were you just getting back into town? You were at the airport. So did you arrive, or you were?
I was manager for Scandinavian Airline System.
Oh, you're working there.
Yeah, I was.
Gotcha.
That was my workplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where I had my office in the second floor.
Understood.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of the tower. It was second story of the airport or of the tower?
Not the tower was about 50 yards away.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that was the building, which is now the Alaska Airlines section. It used to be the old airport. Yeah,
right.
The towers were separate, but close by.
Right.
What a fascinating story.
Yeah, and the story's in the book.
It's in the book. Yep.
Let's tell the people what the name of the book is.
Okay, the name of the book is Today Alyeska Tomorrow Zee World. It's all a little bit on my accent, my German accent. So we put the Z in there.
Got to put the Z in there, right?
the Z like a zinger.
Yeah. The other one that would be fun to read is just like all your quotes. That there's a whole section on quotes.
Yeah, CJ recapped those.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was my quotes man.
Awesome. Yeah.
There's some interesting one, including the last one, a separate story, how yodeling started. Did you read that?
No, I didn't read that one.
Ooh, that's a good story.
All right.
It's in the book, but that would take a while to. It's a page and a half to explain it, but that's a little bit on the risque side, because it's basically there's a farm up in Bavaria, and one of the fellows that was wandering from one place to another town and needed a place to rest, so he asked the farmer if he could stay the night at his hay barn, and the farmer said, "That's fine. You go ahead, stay there." Well, later the farmer's daughter asked, "Who is there? Who is that man?" He says, "Oh, he's a young man is heading to another town and they just need a place to rest." Oh, so she's, I think he must be hungry. So when she went to get some out of the kitchen and went to the hay barn and fed him. She didn't come back an hour later, and he was all disheveled, blouse was half opened and so on. And so the mother observed this, but the daughter immediately went to a room and didn't say anything. And then the mother said to her husband, that poor guy must be thirsty. I'm going to bring him a bottle of wine. And so she went down there and met with him, and again it took an hour, and then she came back all disheveled and all her hair and everything else. So anyhow, the night passed. The next morning, the young man took off. In the morning, he waved the farmer goodbye from the distance, and then the daughter came running up there. Oh, he left. Oh, he was such a nice man. We made love together. And the father go, what? And so by that time, the fellow was halfway up the mountain, and the father said, "You screwed my daughter. How can you do that?" And then he yelled back, "And I laid the old lady too." And the yodeling, that's I laid the old lady too. It's in the book. A whole chapter is devoted to that.
Oh man, he did the old double tap.
Oh man.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's a good one, man.
How long did it take to write the book?
It took about a year and a half, and
okay.
it started right in 2020 when the Corona crisis just hit, and we were in Austria, and my wife is a journalist and a book author from Germany, and she wrote many books, quite 3 or 4, but she was a long-term journalist, and she's the one who heard all these stories over all the years since we got married, and she says, "Oh, you gotta." And here we were locked down in Austria in our place because we couldn't even go out and other than go grocery shopping, and then only one. And we had lots of time. So now it's your time to let's write the book. And I thought, oh, okay. And I thought, the old days I always used. I had a dictating machine, had a couple of secretaries, one for the hotel, one for the ski area, and I just dictated. No, you sit down on the computer and write it yourself. And
oh wow, you had to type it all up.
And I'm not exactly the fastest.
Oh, you were the one finger.
The finger type. Yeah, but
Chris, you had plenty of time. So
we had plenty of time. But normally when I tell a story, I tell it with a lot of enthusiasm. But here when I wrote the book, I wrote it in the chronological order, facts and figures, and cut and dry. And my wife, she as a good journalist says, "We got to embellish this. This is too cut and dry." And she is a journalist. She could do that. So,
she put some spice on it.
Yeah, she did. But there are certain things that is not in the book. You have to read between the lines.
That's right.
There's definitely some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let the imagination take over a little bit, right? Yeah.
How far does it start? In the beginning?
It starts when
you went back from Germany.
It starts when my mother was pregnant. That's the beginning.
Oh, okay.
No, but anyway, it starts when I was born in Berlin. Yeah, and so I talk about my childhood there and how we during the war and how I headed back to Garmisch with my brothers and family.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you kind of got a little bit into like you're falling in love with like a ski town for the first time.
Exactly. Yeah. Garmisch was at that thing, the Olympic ski resort, and they had hosted the 1936 Winter Olympics. And my father and my uncle, they were in bobsleighing at that time. So they, so they were really mountaineers, and so that I really enjoyed growing up in that region because it's a beautiful part of Germany, actually the best part of Germany. And so that's where I had when I went to school, and that's where I then started in the hotel business at my uncle's hotel, and then went to hotel management school. And while I was working at the hotel, the best hotel in Garmisch, I met an American family and told them about my dream someday to want to come to America to continue my hotel career in America, because most hotel executives, when they're hotel management, they move around to different parts of the world to really gain the experience. So I said, and this American family, I took them skiing a few times, and there was a mother and 2 daughters and a son, and their father had been killed in an airplane crash. So we got to know each other, and they're quite a wealthy family. And then one day when they said, let's have lunch together, we have an idea. So then they offered to sponsor me to America, which was a great way to be able to come over to the United States, because you have to have a sponsor and so on. And that's when I when I was 19 years old and 19 and a half years old, I boarded the ship from Naples, Italy to New York, and that's where I headed over here.
Straight across the pond.
Like a steamship?
Oh yeah.
No, it was a regular cruise ship. Yeah.
Oh, cruise ship. Okay.
All right.
How long did it take?
The SS Constitution, and it took exactly 1 week.
Okay.
And it's a great way to come over as an immigrant because you get to know a lot of people, and they tell you about America, and I got to know the people on the ship, and they took me around everywhere. But and then when we got to New York, I remember when I passed the Statue of Liberty, and I said, "Wow, this is it!" On a Saturday morning, and said, "Well, here I am." And then the family had a car that they had bought in Germany, and they said, "We're going to drive across from New York to Los Angeles in West Los Angeles." So it was a great experience, not only come by ship, but then travel across the country for another 2 weeks, 10 days. We spent some time in New York itself and then headed west. So a lot of time people fly over from here to there and never had a chance to really experience. So this I describe in the book too, what kind of first impressions I had the first time I saw one of those drive-in food places, and the people were munching from the windows their hamburgers and dripping, and that's a little different than what I was used to. But anyhow, I talk about some of those first impressions coming to America, and comparing a little bit. That's always an interesting experience for every European coming over here, and vice versa, every American going over to Europe. And,
it's the same.
Well, and how often does a immigrant get to come to the East Coast and go all the way over to the West?
Very rarely.
I feel like a lot of times they get rooted in, say, Jersey or Philly or New York, and then that's where you are.
Yeah.
And
then often you don't get for years before you have a chance to travel anywhere else.
And you got to do it right away.
And that was a great way to learn more about the country. And when I was in Los Angeles, I worked at the Beverly Hills Hotel in Beverly Hills. That was my first job, which was at that time considered one of the very best hotels.
Top notch.
And some of the guys had never been in places where I just traveled from. And even the Beverly Hills Hotel, that's where they had the biggest banquet rooms, 2 ballrooms, and where all the Hollywood events were. And so many special events. And I got to know, amongst others, several times they came to the front desk. I worked at the reception on the evening shift. And several times people came, and I even made friends with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin right at the front desk. And then they invite Chris, after you get off duty, come in. They had these big events in the ballroom, and come and join us and enjoy. And so I did.
Have some cocktails and hang out.
That was good part. I got off at midnight, and these
perfect timing.
These events lasted till 1 or 2 in the morning. And by that time, most people were a little more looped and a little happier.
Ready for some fun, cut loose.
So that was my first job. 3 weeks after I arrived in West Los Angeles, and then I got that job, and I really enjoyed it. Then I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to be a burden to the family. I stayed at their home, and I said, I got to find a place. And one of the employees at the Beverly Hills Hotel, he had a 2-bedroom house, and one of his friends was leaving, so I moved in there. And the next thing I did is buy myself a Vespa, one of the scooters.
The Vespa.
So I had a place to live, and I had a way to get around.
Yeah.
And from there down to Santa Monica and to Malibu, it wasn't that far. That was a good way to start my life in America.
That's right.
And just beautiful then, too. I mean, that's before it got overly populated.
It wasn't as crowded then yet.
Wow.
No. It was just a little bit, and I went there a couple of times in more recent times, and I couldn't believe it. I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
Changed a lot.
Yeah.
Is that Beverly Hilton, the hotel from Beverly Hills Hilton, the hotel from Pretty Woman? Is that the same one?
That's a Beverly Hills Hotel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, with Richard Gere and Julia,
Roberts?
Julia Roberts,
yeah.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
That was.
It's classic.
Did you, your English is so good. Did you learn when you got here, or were you learning before you came to the States?
In school, when I went through high school, it was
one of the courses?
Yeah, one of the first foreign languages is English. It was almost mandatory that you learn.
Oh, really?
And even though I wasn't very fluent, but I had the basic knowledge, I had 3-4 years. But then when I was in the West, when I worked at the Beverly Hills Hotel, I first took courses in history and in political science. First at Santa Monica City College. I couldn't get into UCLA right away. And then, but that was a little further down the road. And then I applied at UCLA, and I continued my part-time. It was not full-time, but I just wanted to pursue the two major subjects which I was interested in political science. I was always interested in history, and so I continued there to improve my language, even though it ain't perfect yet. But some people say I sound a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I don't have the muscles.
The governor.
That's right.
The governor, yeah. That's right.
He actually, Arnold was at the Alyeska Princess Hotel years later, and
is that right?
Yeah, with the Special Olympics they had there, and he and the Kennedy family were sponsors, and so I welcomed him there at the hotel. And my youngest son Fabian, he was an admirer, and he was a muscle builder, and had his book, and so he said, "Dad, can you talk to Mr. Schwarzenegger and get a signature on my book?" And so after I met him, and I didn't hit him right up because he was going to stay for 2-3 days, but I welcomed him in Bavarian, Tyrolean accent, and so we hit it off right from the beginning.
I bet you did.
And then a little later, he says, "Bring your son up. I want to meet him, and then I'll autograph the book."
Oh,
and
beautiful.
It meant a lot to the good old Fabian.
I bet, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
You kind of skipped over a part I wanted to ask about. You said that your family was into bobsledding?
Yes.
Back then?
Mm-hmm.
What? Did you do that too?
No, I didn't do that. But my father and my uncle, and they were in the Winter Olympics in 1936, and they were, and my uncle actually was the driver, and my father was a brakeman, and they had 2-seaters and 4-seaters, and they were doing a lot of bobsledding there. Yeah. And it's the bobsled run is right in that town of Garmisch-Partenkirchen that was part of the Winter Olympics. So yeah, I did more skiing, but at that time I didn't get a chance to do much bobsledding.
Yeah.
In the book, you talk about your dad being a race car driver too.
Yeah.
What tell us more about that?
Well, he and my uncle, again, during the summertime, they were in the car racing, and they owned a Bugatti. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. And they raced cars in Salt. They won in Salzburg in 1936. They won in their league. They won the races. I always had a picture of them in an open convertible Bugatti there. And, I wished I still had that picture that unfortunately later got lost. But they were, and then that's the way my father actually then also transferred to Berlin. He had the Mercedes dealership in Berlin, so that's when he moved from the hometown of Garmisch to Berlin to open up the franchise there for Mercedes. But that's where we lived. That's why he had moved up from his hometown in Garmisch to up north, because he was in the car business.
Yeah, and Garmisch is much smaller.
Oh yeah, Garmisch is
small town.
It's a population of 27,000 people.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No stoplights.
Stoplights.
Only on the ski.
Not gonna put a Mercedes-Benz dealership here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking as we're just going feet first right into this amazing conversation about a very historical individual here, we should introduce our show. Welcome to episode 119, Alaska Wild Project. We have, I don't even know how to roll this out. I'm going to say author number one, Chris Von Imhof.
Imhof.
Yeah. Imhof. What is your title? What is it, like 10 things? Is it? I said author. What was
Mr. Hospitality?
Mr. Hospitality. Yeah.
That's what they when they named me it Mr. Hospitality. But I've had lots of jobs. I was running a ski area. I worked for an airline. I worked director of tourism for the state of Alaska. Mm-hmm. When I moved up here, a few years later, the governor appointed me. I had, of course, running the resort, and I've been involved in a lot of projects. So
Most certainly.
including with the Wildlife Center, I've been actively involved. I was president for the Alaska Wildlife Center.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But was that before or after they got the wood bison?
That was before.
All right.
I was there at the time when we got the wood bison.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
whole introduction of the wood bison.
That's a crazy story.
Mike Miller was our executive director, and he kind of helped move things along. But when I first joined, the Wildlife Center was really struggling financially. So I said, let's make it a non-profit organization. And I can get federal grants and state grants and from foundations like the Rasmus Foundation get funding. And that's when we were able to really make progress, because before he was really struggling, because just to take care of the animals, feeding them, and it's a very, very costly operation. So, but it has been a real highlight in my life. I'm still on the board.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be a part of reestablishing the wood bison herd in Alaska is great.
Yeah, they were extinct and actually basically in North America, and but then they discovered a herd in Yukon Territory, and there the government of Yukon and the Alaska government got the Fish and Game got together and agreed to willing to have a small herd of about 25, 30 that there would be, and then when we brought them to Alaska, it took 2-3 years to get through that whole process. Very, very involved. Then we had to get them all through a vaccination process,
Right.
and so he had to, each one had to go through one of those chutes, and then get jammed in. Then you take blood out of them, and so on. And it was quite a
I bet.
Yeah, they
quite a
probably
show.
weren't too happy about that.
But no, they. But then after 3-4 years, when everything was proven that they're healthy and well and multiplying, and then we moved them out to Shatulak in western Alaska, and that's where they have multiplied and doing quite well.
Yeah, they're doing well. How long has the Nature Center been around? When did that get established originally?
The Wildlife Center initially started in the I would say in the mid '60s.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that long ago.
Yeah, and but then for the first 10 years or so, it was called the Big Game Alaska, and that Mike Miller and Doug, another fellow that ran the fish and the Indian Valley Meat Market.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Indian Valley Meats.
And they teamed up at the time, but then Doug wanted to get out. It was too labor intensive, and then when I moved back from much later, when I moved back from Hawaii back to Alaska, and I really took a liking to Mike and the progress, and then and I said, man, we need to get some more money to be able to do things, to really do it right, because they were really struggling, and then and when so we picked a few members on the board, and then I couldn't attend a board meeting, and that's when they elected me as president of the board. That's the way it goes.
You're doing such a good job. You're going to lead this thing.
Yeah. Well, they knew my father-in-law was my son's father-in-law was Ed Rasmussen, the chairman of the Bank of Alaska, National Bank of Alaska, and the Rasmussen Foundation.
Great man.
Then one of my closest friends, and real personal closest friend, is Ted Stevens, and he even came to a wedding in Austria, and there's also a story about him when I took him for a walk. But anyhow, and that's what this guy behind my back is. Oh yeah, Chris, he got connections. He knew Ted, and he knew Rasmussen. Man, we're gonna get him on the board and show. But it made a difference. We were able to get grants and really make progress.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So from the hotel in Beverly Hills, and what motivated you to eventually come to Alaska, and what year was that?
Well, that's a good question, because I had a good job there, and but then I talked to some of the college students also from UCLA, and they said, Chris, right now, actually the more exciting business than even the hotel business is the airline business, and I said, oh, interesting, yeah. And that was just when the jet age was developing in the 60s, and so I thought maybe I should try that for a little while too, because you could travel all around on passes and learn a new business. And I thought if it didn't work out, I can always go back to the hotel business where I had my degrees and my experience. So that's where I applied with SCS Scandinavian Airlines. They were the first carrier to have the polar flights from Europe via Anchorage to Asia, to Tokyo, Copenhagen, Anchorage, Tokyo, and later then Air France followed. And pretty soon, because they couldn't fly over Russia during the Cold War, they had to fly over Anchorage. So Anchorage became the air crossroads of the world. And
like a hub.
And so I was at that time down in California, and then when the opportunity, my boss he was from Scandinavia, from Denmark. He says, Chris, we got a job for you up north, top job in the and so it told me about Alaska, and I didn't know much more than most Americans or most Europeans. They think cold and dark, and of course it turned out to be at the beginning when we first arrived in November, it was cold and dark. But
Exactly
no igloos.
But anyhow, then they appointed me to be the manager here for the North Polar route here in Anchorage, and that's what brought me up. And I really have no regrets. Never regretted that I had that opportunity to come here to Alaska.
And what was Anchorage like then?
Well, it was a small town. I forget now what the population was, and I moved up here in November of 1963. And I think it may have had about 150,000 population, maybe a little bit more. And and then it slowly grew, and then later, of course, and with the military expanding, and then with the pipeline, then in the 70s. Yeah,
the boom.
But I have to digress when we talk about the pipeline. By that time, I was already managing Alyeska Resort that took over that one later.
Yeah.
And I had a hell of a time trying to keep employees because...
running off to work on the pipeline.
The cooks, mechanics, all of them could get jobs paid 3 times as much money as we could afford in
Girdwood.
In Girdwood,
yeah. Except for you give them a free ski pass, right?
Yeah.
You would have to be a real ski bum.
But anyhow, so I worked with SES here, and I really enjoyed my job. And then one day the government wanted to have a big promotion to Europe with SES, and SES said they would sponsor it. And then I agreed to coordinate it, and so we invited some people from the travel industry, from the different airlines and tour companies. Then we had some Eskimos and Indians participate. And so there was a real good group, including Governor Egan, first governor of Alaska.
Right.
And so I got to know him pretty well. And then there was one other nice person on that on that promotion was Miss Alaska. She's just retiring Miss Alaska.
Oh.
And she was not looking bad at all. That turned out to be CJ's mom. Then.
Right, yeah.
Oh, you pulled that one in, huh? Okay. She's right. Fish on.
So from the book, I mean, she's Miss Alaska, and she's like a natural born killer out there as a hunter.
Yeah. She was raised. She was born in Nome and raised in Kotzebue, and she was both polar bear hunting and grizzly bear hunting, and so she was quite a smart. She went to university at Fairbanks, where their parents also had a house. But yeah, I was pretty lucky. And while I was on that trip, so the governor, I got to know him, and I talked to him. Before, in the tourism industry, they always just said, Alaska is good for 100 days in the summertime, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, 100 days, and then to lock it up. And I said, no, Alaska has so much potential, especially Anchorage, because where I'm from in Bavaria, climate is fairly similar. It's not much warmer. And so while I was on the trip with the governor, I said, we could also promote the off season and in the fall and winter, and then also talked about the international marketing, because we were the air crossroads of the world. There was at one time 13 international airlines flying from Europe via Anchorage to Asia. All Sabina and KLM and British Airways and Lufthansa and SES and all the different carriers. So that we can really capitalize on that. Alone the crew business was good, because they all had to lay over here.
Right.
Yeah.
But these were commercial flights for people, not
Cargo.
Cargo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did have cargo, but the cargo was not the main factor.
Okay.
It was primarily
Which
was
it is
at that
now,
time.
right?
Yeah,
It's
which
the
is
opposite
now.
now.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there
this
only
is the-
Lufthansa, right? Does that the flight from here to
Condor.
or Condor? Yeah,
Condor in the summer.
Condor, yeah, that's the way I just came over last week.
Oh, you did?
On the polar flight. That's but they only come out during the summer. But
Right.
It makes and it takes about 9.5, 10 hours.
Yeah.
From Dusseldorf
From Frankfurt to
or
Anchorage.
Frankfurt? Yeah.
And so I boarded my flight at 2:00 in Frankfurt in the afternoon, and arrived here about 1:45, about 50 minutes before, because you gain 10 hours.
Yes.
So, but on the way back, you got paid back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
But anyhow, so that's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, although I wish I was warned about getting to that flight early, because they almost gave my seats away. I think I was there like 2 hours and 10 minutes, and like, no, you have to get here earlier than this.
Really, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was right before Oktoberfest, so I think it was probably a popular time for Alaskans heading over.
September is a good time to travel.
It was wonderful.
In Europe, actually, I tell most Europeans come in the fall, September, October, November, or come in spring. But in the summertime, don't go to Europe because it gets too crowded and too hot. And but for the Europeans, of course, summer is the main attraction. Even though I've even helped promote winter tourism primarily with helicopter skiing at Alyeska, because that's something they don't offer over in most ski resorts. It's against the law to fly helicopters around alpine villages and so on. So,
really?
So we were able to. That's when we started forming then Chugach Powder Guides.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were a part of the formation of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's my friend Dave Henry. He was my avalanche technician when I managed hotels. Oh, Chris. I think I can put together a package with the helicopter, and and then of course he hit me up for good rates in the hotel. And,
Oh yeah.
And so then we packaged it, and it really went over quite well. And now it has grown, and then later it started also in Valdez and other places. But Chugach Powder Guides was one of the first ones to really start it up.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
I'm gonna have you move the mic a little bit closer that way. Yeah, when you're speaking to Jack. Thanks. Sorry.
There we go, Chris.
Yeah, I
There
haven't
it
been
is.
up with them yet, but I would really like to. I'm friends with a bunch of my dad's buddies. Then they all, when I was in college, they were buying, a million vertical miles at a time, 100,000 each kind of thing. And I was like, when I graduate, I'm in on this. And so I was so excited. I get home from college. I'm like, all right, here's my checkbook, and they switched the policies and stopped doing the pay by the footage.
It became popular in Canada at the CMH, Canadian Mountain Holidays. They had these 100,000 vertical, or a million vertical. Then they get a blue suit and so on. So
Yeah.
But nowadays it ain't cheap
No.
anymore.
Oh man, no way.
Yeah,
Changed a lot.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So you guys really pioneered the heli skiing.
That was part of the program, yeah. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember even while we had that, one day I get a call from the mayor of Valdez, and his name was Bill Walker, and he says, Chris, can you and your mountain manager come over to Valdez? We want to build a ski area, and think about, they want to do something similar like Juno did with Eagle Crest, And,
okay.
And so I flew over with, and they arranged everything on the ground. Once we got there, had the helicopter standing by, and we checked out all the terrain. But the area, even though now I just recently read the paper, someone is thinking about again building a ski area. But at that time I said, I don't think Valdez is quite ready yet because they get too much snow.
Right.
And where they would have had to wanted to build it the base area and the snow load, the factors. And so I said, Mr. Mayor, at that time, I think I would recommend to start out with the heli skiing. And he says, there you don't have all the capital investment and you get the customer. And then if you really see that there is good opportunities that you can really explore any places where you might want to consider in the future. So, and initially they were a little disappointed that, but I wrote a follow-up report, and I just told them that the economics to run a whole ski area, it really would require a lot of capital support from the city. And later, when the pipeline then start becoming, they probably could have afford to lose money. Eagle Crest still hasn't made most of them not much money either.
Right.
Of course, Alyeska didn't either for many years.
Right.
Took a while, didn't it?
As I wrote in my book, I was struggling actually until when after I left. Well, let me backtrack. So then the governor appointed me as director of tourism. So I was based down in Juneau and promoted Alaska, and was just getting ready for the for the centennial, because it was appointed there in 1966. And 1967 was the 100-year celebration of the purchase of Alaska from Russia, and so I got really involved in that to really help promote Alaska, and we had a pretty good budget. The first time, I remember always was the first one ever in Alaska that bought a Super Bowl ad in a television for 60 seconds, and that was the very first time. And we had a fantastic footage with the flying and the cruises and the fishing and I mean, it's spectacular. There was one of the best edited film footage of Alaska. And so I said, this one we're going to, at that time, a commercial with the Super Bowl cost about, for a 60-second cost $500,000. Now, for 30 seconds, these days, 30 second costs $3 million, and for 60 second cost 5.5. So, but at that time, 500,000 was a lot of money.
Right.
Oh man!
And initially, I got some flack from some of the naysayers. You can't spend the money like that.
Yeah.
But when we released it nationwide in Alaska, we showed it more than anywhere else, and everyone in Alaska was so proud. They said, "Can we get a footage?" And because we want to send to our friends and relatives. So, but that was a great part of promoting Alaska, and including, of course, then we also reference to Russia and how Alaska was purchased in 1867 for $7.2 million, and anyhow, so this was. I had that job and really enjoyed my tourism director and traveled all over and promoted. But it seemed like I always have new opportunities come up. While I was director of tourism, the chairman of Alaska Airlines, I got to know him pretty well, Charlie Willis. And he says, Chris, if you have any ideas how we could promote more winter tourism, and then I said, well, there's a small ski area called Alyeska down and Girdwood. Eventually, if that were to be developed and build a hotel and so on, that would help a little bit to get some skier traffic. So winter tourism started, and then a little bit later, I got to meet the Frenchman who actually originally invested in Alyeska, Francois de Gansberg, and he was the one that initially bought it invested in 1959, 1960.
And that was like the 11 people that bought the land?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
I can see you read the book.
Oh, yeah. It was, I mean, it's a page turner.
Most people have anyway sometimes ask me some question. Oh, it's in the book.
Yeah.
Ask CJ, he heard that comment.
So like someone was trying to make the bid on that land, but then the Girdwood guys came in and bid over, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah.
It is enough. One of the fellows was a pilot, flying a Piper pilot, and his name was Ernie Bauman.
Oh yeah.
And as you saw a reference to it, we had another book which I commissioned before called Alaska's Perfect Mountain, where it's a story about Ernie Bauman. Now the wife that after my first wife passed away 20 years ago. Then my present wife, her maiden name was Bauman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was a kind of coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
But anyhow, he was flying around, and then he wanted to buy it. But then the local 12, the gang of 12, they outbid him to buy the 230. Wait a minute. There was 160 acres for the ski area. And then later leased from the state of Alaska 233 acres for the subdivision.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but wasn't Bowman like the original pioneer of that mountain, though, for skiing?
He was the one who initially picked the areas that this makes a good ski area.
Right.
So he was a pioneer in that regard, but he never had a chance then to. And then, unfortunately, he got killed in an airplane crash.
Right.
That was very sad. I would have loved to meet the man.
Yeah. Yep. So like up in the up on the top there at the top of the tram where there's all those historical pictures of like the first landings and stuff, like right before they built the roundhouse up there
and the first chairlift. Yeah.
So who would be in those pictures?
Well, one of the original investors was this Francois de Gansberg, this Frenchman, who actually the local the gang from Girdwood hired a gal to find an investor to be able to build. And so then after traveling around in Denver, Colorado, she met this Frenchman who was a multimillionaire, and she told him about the area, and so he came up and he liked what he saw.
Right.
And he's the one that originally built then the French made chairlift. Paul Migalski was the brand name. And, and that time was the longest chairlift in the United States.
Chair one?
Yeah, chair one.
Really?
Yeah. And so it definitely was a start, even though the population of Anchorage was very limited. And believe me, after quite a few years running it, then had a few rope tows and built the day lodge. In '63, they hosted the first U.S. national championships. And was also in preparation that they had for the Winter Olympics the following year in '64. But anyhow, that's the way. And the Frenchman, then after a while, he got discouraged with. It was pretty tough business, and the biggest challenge of all for me running the resort was the weather factor, and because we were, frankly, unfortunately, just about 1,000 feet too low.
Oh, because you're basically
we are the lowest skier in the world, a major ski area. We're only 100 meters or 300 feet above sea level. 250 feet is our base station. When I tell that to Europeans, they think you must be crazy. It can't be possible. And believe me. Unfortunately, because of the Japanese current and occasionally we get the monsoon season coming in, and sometimes we had some great snow conditions, and all once then the rain came, and sometimes right in Christmas time, and I'm not sure you remember that. It just sometimes, my wife said my mood went up and down by the barometer. It was tough to.
I bet. Yeah.
I want to get. Sorry. Go ahead.
Would you have changed where it was built?
Would have
if you could go back and put it somewhere else.
Good question.
Interesting enough, the ideal area is just 1,000 meters or about 3,000 feet further up in the Winter Creek
you think
area.
Winter Creek? Yeah.
Absolutely, because that is about 600-700 feet higher. It has more intermediate terrain. Alyeska was always known to be an advanced mountain.
Right.
And to make it a profitable area, you need intermediate terrain, and it has about 2.5 times the ski area terrain that Alyeska has. So it would have been we would have had to run the road further up the valley, and by that time that was that was even more of an expense, and
a little too late.
But it still can be done.
You think it will be?
And there were mining claims, gold mining claims, and then we convinced the city to buy out the mining claims, so that we had for a while. We're really promoting especially when we were bidding for the Winter Olympics, as you may know, that's also in the book.
Yeah. I want to get into that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll get back into building for the Olympics.
Okay.
All right.
Barney Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. Barney specializes in supplying hunters with the absolute best Alaskan-proven gear on the market for some of nature's most rugged and demanding terrain. Whether you're headed to the remote volcanic islands of the Alaska Peninsula in search of a brown bear, or the shale-infested glacial valleys of the Brooks Range for Dall sheep, it is critical you choose the right gear for your dream hunt. Don't miss Barney's exclusive brand, Frontier Gear of Alaska, tested from the high mountains of Tajikistan to the extreme conditions of Alaska. These products were designed for high performance and durability. Frontier Gear was derived from decades of experience hunting big game in Alaska. Paired with other top brands, it provides you the absolute best gear selection anywhere in the world. Stop in at Barney Sports Chalet in Anchorage on Northern Lights, or check out their custom website and reference tool at barneysports.com.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaska public lands, waters, and wildlife. From national level policy work to engagement with boots on the ground projects from Kotzebue to Ketchikan. BHA performs public land cleanups, hunting and fishing clinics, and community education to help take your game to the next level. BHA's community-minded goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping wildlands wild and fostering the next generation of sportsmen and women for years to come. Make sure to follow BHA Alaska for upcoming events, local brewery pint nights, and more. Stand up for Alaska public lands and waters by supporting the Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Join us today at backcountryhunters.org.
The Treehouse AK, your one-stop dispensary located at 341 Boniface Parkway. Be sure to ask the bud tender about their deal of the day, because honestly, there's always something good on deck. And guys, listen, this is where the culture lives. At the Treehouse, their dedication to servicing consumers has been developed through a lifetime of involvement in the cannabis culture. They're committed to providing the highest quality products at whatever value your budget affords, while always maintaining the deep-rooted principles that have carried them this far. Their focus is on relationships over transactions, and you can always depend on them to treat you with the respect you deserve. Hit them up at thetreehouseak.com, and remember, you must be 21 years of age to enter their store.
And I got to give the Pomeroy credit. They did put some money into the Nordic Spa.
All right, welcome back, guys.
That's about a $15-16 million investment.
A couple of current events before we jump back into the story. We got the Slam and Salmon Derby on June 7th. Go down there and sign up. We are still going to do our giveaway with the VIP passes for those people. And then also want to mention the Full Draw Film Tour is coming to Alaska June 14th at the Centennial Center in Fairbanks and June 16th in Anchorage at the Alaska Performing Arts.
And what is that?
That's the Full Draw Film Tour.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The bow hunting one?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so we're linking up with those guys to just help promote and get the word out. And help them
quick
out.
correction, just so we're on par with our sponsor, the Bait Shack. Slam and Salmon Derby, June 9th through June 17th.
Oh, did I say 7th?
7th, yeah.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
you're fine. I just wanted to clarify that it is that chunk of time that you can come and participate in the Derby, buy a ticket. And like Daniel said earlier, we'll be promoting a little video, and we'll have a giveaway for some VIP passes that are going to give you a Derby ticket. Come down between those dates, June 9th to 17th, and catch a king, maybe win a gold nugget.
One of the awesome things they do down there at the Bait Shack is the Youth Day.
Yeah, the Kids Day.
When's
Day.
that going down?
20th.
Does it say on there?
No, I want to say it's like the 23rd.
Yeah, Kids Day is really awesome. All the kids get to fish for free, and he always has like some food down there and hot chocolate and all that
You
stuff
looking it
for
up,
for the kiddos. So that'll be good. So look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely want to take the kids down this year for that one.
Saturday, June 17th.
June 17th.
Yep, that's the last day of the Derby.
Yep. Oh, it won't be.
And that's
there yet.
that's a huge event. Free food, hot dogs, giveaways. It's just a fun family event and something to get the kids out. And you don't have to have a rod and reel. You don't need to have waiters. You don't need to have anything. You can just bring the kids down, and Dustin Slinker, his team, Bait Shack, they have everything that you need to get a line wet and see if you can get the kiddos a king and win some cool stuff.
Yep. If you're in town, do that.
Yep.
For sure.
For sure. Chris, so you mentioned gearing up for the Olympics. Are you talking about gearing up to try to get the Olympics to come to Alaska?
Now?
Back then.
Back then, yes, absolutely. I was, as I say, I was raised in an Olympic resort. Actually, my uncle, who was a bobsledder too, he was also the International Olympic Committee member for Germany. And so I had a pretty good idea of what it takes to host the Winter Olympics. And my first one that I personally attended was in Italy, Cortina d'Ampezzo, where they had it in 1956. And I was quite impressed with that one. I was just a young boy, but I really watched them carefully. Then I moved in 1959 to America. In 1960, they had it in Squaw Valley, California. And again, I observed it. I lived at that time in California, and I really followed it. And so then, since then,
Did you go to some events?
in Cortina? I did. In Squaw Valley, I was able to go for 2 days, get away from my job, but I couldn't stay for longer. But again, here, a place like Squaw Valley, which had no infrastructure, no major developments around there, and their manager and entrepreneur, he managed to pull it off to get the commitment from the state and the federal government eventually to build that, to host the Winter Olympics, and that really that really impressed me, because in Europe many of the areas were more established, but Squaw Valley wasn't. So anyhow, over the years, and I moved up here to Alaska, and then I watched again the Winter Olympics. That was in 1984 in Sarajevo in Yugoslavia, and again another small town. When I compared Sarajevo, I did a statistic analysis, the population, the access, et cetera, compared to Anchorage, Alaska, which at that time was the air crossroads of the world. And I felt we had a bigger population base, we had a better infrastructure really than Sarajevo or like Squaw Valley. So I thought we could do it. And so I really made a list of all the pros and cons, and then I got together with my advertising agency, Rick Meistrom, which was at that time the account. He had the Meistrom Advertising. This was before he was mayor, and we had lunch at the Corsair restaurant, and I really told him that this is something we should be able to put together, and he caught fire, and then I convinced the board of directors of ACVB, the tourism organization, and they got enthusiastic about it. So pretty soon the idea got rolling, and let's put together a plan, and let's see if we can get the commitment from the U.S. Olympic Committee after we have a good plan. And so we worked hard, and I got to give Rick Meistrom credit and a lot of other people from, including Ted Stevens, Tony Knowles, mayor at that time, and Ted was already in the Senate getting money for the hosting the Winter Olympics. So it really took and it was during the 80s when we were going through that, and at that time the economy was down, and this was the one thing that people really got enthusiastic.
Right.
Wow, there's something, and so when we finally we're ready to, we had to go to the U.S. Olympic Committee, which was at that time, I had a meeting in Indianapolis, of all places, but and there we made our presentation, and there were 4 or 5 other places, including Salt Lake City and Lake Placid, and I forget now what other U.S. cities were, and and after. Make a long story short, after we came back, and we had a feeling that we made a good impression. We talked to the other people, and sure enough, then we got notified that we were selected by the U.S. Olympic, not the International Olympic Committee, the U.S. Olympic Committee, as a site for the 1990. This was in 85 when they have to make 7 years in advance select the site. So in 85 they awarded us that we could be the host for the 1992 Winter Olympics. And wow, that we just the whole town got all excited.
Stoked.
Down at the Park Strip, they had big celebrations and so on. So that, and at that time, there was like the one big project that for Anchorage and Alaska, and so then we knew that other European and other areas were competing. Well, the first time we didn't quite have the international connections when we went to the international in Lausanne, Switzerland, where we were bidding for we had to go then the following fall and submit. There was a half a dozen other European and countries that were bidding on it. And at that time, that Jean-Claude Killy, I'm not sure if you know him, he was one of the winners French alpine ski racers. He won more gold medals than just about anybody. And he had the connections with the International Olympic Committee more than we did at that time. So we finally we came at that time, I think third or fourth, but we learned a lot, and it's interesting enough. At that time, they just switched it so there would be the next opportunity was in 1994 because they tried to separate the Winter and Summer
Oh,
Olympics.
right.
They're not the same year. So,
Yep.
so as a result, they said they moved up. So we again submitted our bid and plans to the U.S. Olympic Committee and really put even more effort into it and had even more refined details and they pretty well picked us again that over Salt Lake, over others that we got again there nod from the U.S. Olympic Committee. And then I had to go to the International Olympic Committee, and this time we came so close. We came within one vote.
Oh my goodness, really? It was that close.
And you know who the vote was? Was from one of the two International Olympic Committee members from America.
What?
He was from Salt Lake, and he thought if Anchorage gets it, then Salt Lake City wouldn't get it. And they were also planning. They were one of the bidding countries.
Oh.
So he voted against us, and that was basically it was fairly secret. But
Was it Mitt Romney?
No. By the way, Mitt Romney later became actually the host during the
So I always just associate with him for some reason us not getting the Olympics. I don't know why, but
he was when they had it in 2002. Was it 2002?
2002.
And but anyhow, that one was a shocker for us.
Man!
And then
we figured, like a heartbreaker.
Oh, it was.
I mean, versus the other one, where we're like, okay, we're in.
Yeah.
We got our, we're on the map, and then there was.
And we had a good plan, and but I have to admit, to make a long story short, now I would not even want to bid for Anchorage and for Alaska anymore. It's way too expensive. Now only the big cities do it. And when they had the Winter Olympics in Vancouver, and that was in 2002, it was a year after the 9/11, and as a result, the security requirement alone to host them for Vancouver was $850 billion. And that's before many other things. And nowadays, when cities like Sochi or Beijing, and I mean, to me, Beijing didn't have anything to do with winter. It just it was so. But I think many other cities in Europe, and they are turning down the Winter Olympics too because it just got too out of hand, too expensive to do it. And I think here I think you would probably not find the same enthusiasm as we did 30 years ago when we were first bidding on it.
Would our infrastructure, would it have boomed had we gotten the bid the years prior, as far as building the hotels and maybe even add-ons to Alyeska? Do you think there would have been some huge infrastructure improvements?
It definitely would have. Including Ted Stevens was really pushing for getting a high-speed train from Anchorage to Girdwood, and because even later he supported that concept because he figured but it probably would have had much sooner more improvements on the Seward Highway in order to. And there would have been definitely a lot of improvements in Anchorage, where the ski jump would have been in Arctic Valley and so on. And that's
areas where they would have had
Alyeska.
games.
We were only for the alpine events, but all the other events, from skating, hockey to ski jumping, most
cross-country skiing.
90% of the activity would have been in Anchorage and surrounding.
So we would have had some badass hockey rinks. And all kinds of stuff built.
And at that time, Uncle Ted could have come through with the funding. So at that time it was the right time, and but nowadays I guess maybe I'm getting older, get more skeptical. I just figured that it wasn't
meant to be, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to say that, as much as I had my heart into it, that would have been. Yeah. But we still, for Alyeska, we're still looking for the long term, the Winter Creek, Glacier Creek development. Right now we just do heli skiing in that region, but that eventually could be developed for another major alpine ski area.
That'd be great.
Yeah, the cat skiing back there is really good too. Yeah.
Is there a place maybe that you visited that you think that would be great for the next Winter Olympics or one of the Winter Olympics coming up?
Let me see if
that hasn't hosted yet.
not sure who right now is in the running anymore. In the U.S., even Denver didn't want it anymore. They had it once bid, and then the people voted against it. And Lake Placid, maybe in New York, would probably still want to do it because they got a lot of the infrastructure there. They hosted at one time the Winter Olympics. And on the West Coast, Salt Lake maybe be interested in doing it again. But as far as a new area, I am not quite sure because, as I said, nowadays the infrastructure and everything cost is so much more than ever before. So I don't think there are too many real potential sites that I can think of.
I'm curious, actually, who is next on it when that works again.
I wonder if they'll ever break it up. Like this World Cup coming up is the first time they've broken up the World Cup to go across 3 countries to kind of split up that cost and involve more countries and all that. Get more viewers the opportunity to go to World Cup. But that would be like a cool little aspect. I mean, why do the Nordic skiers need to be at the same place as the alpine skiers and as the figure skaters? Why not have it hosted in multiple cities?
In Europe, they have that concept where Italy, Austria, and which was the third one, Switzerland, they were going to do, all 3 countries were going together, but they're all within hundreds.
Right. You can stand on the ski resort and go to...
So it's still a distance, but they because of the cost, amongst other things, and with this way, they wouldn't have to build everything up from scratch just in one community like at that time was required.
Growing up here and not having like a sports team, when we were doing the bids, when you were doing the bids, we, all of the Anchorage people, everyone in Alaska knew about it, right? And I remember that being like this fun spirit as a young kid, like, oh, we might get the Olympics, we're going for it. And it was just like this like pride for your city kind of thing. I really enjoyed that.
Well, I take pride, good old Rick Meister, in one of my notation there, he did say that for the rest of his life, Chris should be proud of the leadership he exhibited from the very start of our Olympic bid. The people of Alaska will never forget his role in making Anchorage Olympics bids happen. So from Rick Meister, so
that's right.
Meant a lot to me. And then Tony Knowles also was involved in that one, and he had his comments. So, but it is what it is. But we can host World Cup Alpine Championships. We can have hockey champion, Nordic things. So we can focus on more individual events rather than doing it all together. Yeah. And I think that again promotes a lot more. And actually, it's more easily doable.
Right. Yeah, and it gives people access to another sport too. If you're like a hockey player and they're hosting the Nordic races, then it's like you go look at those. So you're not used to Nordic, you get to learn a little bit about it. Maybe you want to try on a pair of skis and get after it.
Yeah, so the 2026 is Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo in Italy.
Cortina d'Ampezzo, Milan, and they're pretty far apart. Okay, they're still. And so
looks beautiful there.
2026, right? Yeah,
that's correct.
And they don't have who's after that. Doesn't say.
No, it doesn't.
So the year that we lost it, we were really close. Who ended up winning it?
Salt Lake.
Lillehammer.
Right.
Lillehammer, 1994.
Lillehammer got in 92 was Albertville, France, won it, and in 94 was Lillehammer, and they did a good job. I mean, and that's where our Tommy Moe raced at Alyeska. He won the gold medal.
Yeah.
In the alpine races in the downhill, and in Europe, even now, over there they follow this Olympic. I mean, alpine skiing is the leading sport in the winter and the summer. It's soccer, and when I say, well, we're from Alaska, oh yeah, you had that Olympic ski champion, and then one and Tommy Moe is involved with the heli skiing operation by Tortwilly Mountain Lodge.
Yeah, right.
And so he and Mike Overcast, another good friend of ours that used to be also in heli skiing, and he's an investor in that lodge. They came over to, and my wife and I took him around and to make some presentation to promote heli skiing in Alaska. And everyone went, oh, Tommy Moe, did you know? In 94, he won there at Lillehammer, Norway. I can't believe it. It was here. People forget after 2 years who
yeah, Totally. That's in Austria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bavaria too.
Okay. Yeah.
And Switzerland and France in the Alpine region. Their Alpine skiing is they can remember who won what Olympic medal in what year.
It's their football. Their American football.
Yeah, and all the facts.
So do you think they're going to develop Winter Creek?
I think it may not be in my lifetime, as much as I would have loved to see it happen, because it really is a potential great site. And again, I describe it in the book, and we had done studies on it, and it could be done in phases. We could, for example, the road goes to the Alpine, the road on the Snowcat Road. It goes there, and then have a couple of high-speed chairlifts from there, make it at the base area. And don't need to build a big fancy new hotel right away and everything else, or you wouldn't even need to build a gondola, even though gondola is nowadays more popular. But it would require money. But I think a lot of infrastructure is ready in Alyeska and Girdwood, so that they could even be based, for people that's staying in the hotel. From there, it's a hop and a jump to go over there. And so I think that one. I still would love to see if a good investor says, I don't think Pomeroy they're not really that much into alpine skiing, as you well know. And that's where we got problems. But I think another potential investor, some of those heli skiers, some of them were fairly rich guys, and some of those got excited about it. But for a while, it kind of lost a little bit of momentum, but for a while we had this Girdwood 2020 organization. Now it's called Girdwood Alliance, and that was on top of our list of promoting it, and to really advocate that this would be the great future for the expansion of alpine skiing.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy who frequents Alyeska snowboarding and has since childhood, and he was kind of concerned, I guess, just sharing his personal opinion on the thought that Alyeska would kind of make a transition toward like an Aspen, where maybe it was, he likes it being the small town ski lodge feel, and
not the big village kind of thing.
Yeah, and he sees it going that direction, in his opinion. I wouldn't know, but
yeah, I
mean, is that kind of like the direction in over the years, the growth and development of Alyeska? I mean, it is a very popular ski resort, but if with the Winter Creek thing went through, I guess, would that be the next step for Girdwood to kind of really blow up more? Yeah.
But we also, and I gotta go back to all been following a little bit about this Holton Hills real estate development in Girdwood. We got, when Girdwood got nixed by the municipality of Anchorage, I was that time running the resort, and they inherited thousands of acres of valuable land, and some of it should be preserved for what it is, like the moose meadows that should just but there's other areas that can be developed for real estate development, and I feel that. And not only the expensive units, the Aspen units. And I've been advocating, and as people know, there is an area right below our community center of Girdwood called the squirrel cages. It's from there down all the way to the treatment plant. The sewer system runs already down there because it was right there. And that could be developed for more low-cost housing. And I'm very much an advocate for that, too. I mean, it should not just be the high-end. And I actually recommended at the time, if HLB, if they had been smart enough, they said, okay, we'll let the developer for Holton Hills move in that direction. If you also put that other parcel of land, which has about 100 acres of land for development, the squirrel cages, and they say, but 30, 40 years ago, they thought it may be in the floodplain. Well, that can be mitigated easily, but you always find the reasons that people. But to me, I was upset that they just the HLB have all this land, and and just screwing around, and as a result, the pricing, and that's where people have the concern that we're becoming like an Aspen, that we're pricing ourselves out of the market,
right?
Okay.
And I think that's because I really feel it's a problem right now that a lot of the resort had to build employee housing left and right, but I used to own the Jack's Bread restaurant, and my tenant, he had a hell of a tough time. He used to run 7 days a week, including a weekend brunch. Now he only runs 5 days a week because of employee housing.
Right.
It's just tough to get. So I share a little bit the concern about the Aspen concept that the people had to shuttle but we got plenty of land. And that's just it. And with the proper planning, we can have some high-end development, but also it could be directed that it has to be kind of a affordable housing, as we call it. Because where the treatment plant is and where the sewer lines run down, that is not half, but a third of the cost is just to run the infrastructure down there. And
for sure.
And because that's the most expensive part of it. And so I hope eventually people will really focus on making more land, and I hope HLB and MOA will, because we got annexed at that time against the will of the Girdwoodians, and then Mayor Sullivan appointed me as chair of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and so I have to tell you a quick story. It's also in the book. So then he says, Chris, I know the Girdwood people weren't too happy about being annexed by Anchorage, but we're going to do them a favor. We're going to flip a switch, and so you don't have to make any more long-distance calls. It will be local calls. And it was about 55 cents at that time. I forget what it was. I said, Mr. Mayor, that's not going to do it. and I said, we're going to come back with a recommendation. If you want to get a little bit of support from the Girdwood community and show that you appreciate, and I knew exactly what I had in mind because I lived there for quite a few years. In Girdwood, we were all on septic tanks and leach fields, and they were bubbling over because the soil conditions aren't as good, and you couldn't get proper financing because of that, and so I figured now we need to get a modern sewer system, and so I got together our board of supervisors, and then we met with the mayor again, and they said that's what we need, and he said, "Wow, that's a tall order. I didn't expect that because that's about $25-30 million project with a treatment plant and all the lateral line and
but it was a necessity.
It was absolutely essential. Without that, it would have gone down the drain, literally speaking. So anyhow, and they said, okay, well, let me have my staff, AWU, work on the design phase and see if we can come up with a plan to, if that's something feasible. And so he did. I could give him credit for that. And he says, and I'll work with the state government to see. But he says, I know you get a friend that could help on the federal side. I said, I played dumb. He says, it comes easy for me. So he says, yes, I know you can talk to the Senator, Ted Stevens, because he's been down at Alyeska a lot of time at the cabin and so on, and he knew the problem that he's a personal friend ever since I was when he was in the legislature and I was director of tourism. I've known him for a long time. So I said, okay, once you could do the engineering and analysis, then I can send him something, a package, and I can talk to him over a glass of wine or two. I said,
maybe a bottle.
That's a good idea, a bottle or two, but it got to be good red wine.
That's right.
But I said we got to have a plan, and sure enough, but 4 or 5 months later, that's when the city, the AW came up with a plan, and then he says, the mayor called me and says, bring your board of supervisors to the conference room in Anchorage, and the AW will give you a presentation. And so they had it pretty well engineered. I got him credit, and and I forget now what they only had construction estimates, so it finally said, well, we're going to pursue state grants and federal grants, and then probably a small percentage would have to be paid by their local property owners, which was fine. And so then when I had the cost factor, then I sent it to actually I discussed it with the senator when he was here, and then I sent him the package, and less than 7 weeks later, he says, Chris, we got the funding, we got the federal grants, 75% federal grants.
Oh, nice.
75%.
Wow.
And then the state agreed to a 12.5% state grant, and the rest would have had to be paid by, well, the municipality itself said, well, we have all the expense in engineering design, that's our costs, and then the property owners had to pay 12.5% over 25 years at a very low interest rate. So it was very affordable.
Yeah.
And no one balked at that, really, right? The fact that there was going to be a modern sewage
there
system.
are a few locals in Girdwood.
Oh, sure.
There are always a few. We don't need
I shit in a bucket. We're fine.
I got my septic tank working. Just shit is not flowing downhill yet.
I still got a couple of years in that thing.
So, anyhow, that's, and then in the 70s, we built the sewer system, or the AW, and I gave them credit. They did a good job with the treatment plant. It also improved our roads. Before, many of the roads were just hazardous. There were still big logs in the middle of, it was just buried on the gravel, and so there was not exactly the whole village when it first was developed. It was all on a shoestring, and and I was part of the shoestring operation. but eventually we start making progress, and so I think then you could get financing for homes through and it made all the difference in the world. That is an important factor.
Why did Anchorage annex them?
I think they just thought that is a good deal for the Anchorage, and it was a good deal.
Yeah.
But they sat on that land for a long time. It took us 10 years to put the deal together to build the Alyeska Princess Hotel and get 80 acres of land. And as I say, we almost the Japanese they almost walked away because it just was over there. The owner in Japan and was used to, if he purchased a piece of property within 6 months, a year, get all the government approval and moved ahead. And we developed a pretty good rapport with him, and one time he was considered the richest man in the world.
Oh, really?
By Forbes magazine, yeah.
How did he make all of his money?
After the war, his father actually developed the real estate and then he went in the department stores. Then he went to the Seibu Railway. But by the time I got to know him, when we made a pitch to sell Alyeska from Alaska Airlines, when I put this together at that time, they owned 27 ski areas. They owned 45 Prince hotels in Japan alone. But he was very successful, and at that time the economy was just booming in the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s. But then it took a nosedive too, like so many times elsewhere.
86, 87, 88, something like that.
Yeah.
Oil price.
But I was going to say that one of my toughest time was in the 70s before we made the deal with Seibu Prince Hotels. And at that time, the pipeline was getting built. And as I mentioned earlier, and at that time, we all our staff, the mechanics, the cooks, the housekeepers, and so they all said, "Hey, Chris, we love you, but we're out here. We're going to get 3 times, 4 times as much money working at the pipeline." I had to import people from stateside, from farming land, and have to sign contracts, and had to find condos where I could house them, and so on. It was a tough part of surviving that. Even though I supported the pipeline and I voted wherever I could because I really felt it made good sense But for running a resort at that time, it was a tough situation as far as staffing is concerned.
Yeah. You made them sign the contract so they couldn't work on the pipeline? Yeah, smart. Smart.
So they were on
This
like a
deal.
salary then?
And you know what? Nowadays, in the last 10, 20 years, is very traditional in most hotels and resorts. They bring in what they call J1 visa employees from Europe, from
Right.
from
Yep.
Poland, from different parts, and there they sign an agreement that they will work and stay with you. The only thing you have to have is employee housing. You know that.
Give them a place to stay.
But if you have the housing, you can import them, and they can. Many of them are still students too, but this is part of the education there. So they call them J1 visa employees, and they normally stay for 3 to 6 months, and that helped us in the last 10, 20 years a lot to not only the resort but also the restaurants and the like Jack's Bread. He's been hiring them, or even a bake shop.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see them a lot at 49th State Brewery downtown.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and Denali too, and
all
Healy.
the tourism. I mean,
And the tourism industry became pretty well known that you can, in order to get, because a lot of times you hire local people, everyone wants to hire local people, but then they, fishing is good, or
I gotta go.
Yeah, that's right. The Reds are
Moose
coming in.
season. I gotta go. What was the resort vibe like during that pipeline boom? Was there a lot of people frequenting the resort during their breaks or off time, or was everybody just working and then in and out?
Well, we didn't get too much of the typical pipeline workers. I think they spend more on Spinard Road. There were some hostels.
Yeah. They call those the ladies of the night.
oh yeah. I used to drive by those.
I believe that was PJ's.
Yes, Papa Joe's. Yes.
Yeah.
See, I still remember those.
Oh, Papa Joe's. Never saw it, but I heard lots about it.
You never got a chance to go in there?
I never went to PJ's. No, my dad told me all about the place, though.
Yeah, we went in there a few times.
His buddy in junior high, his dad owned it, and so they were in
Regulars.
there. Yeah, very young age, regulars.
Bush Company didn't do too bad either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Great Alaskan Bush Company.
Great
excuse
Alaskan,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't forget the grape.
yeah. It's been a while since I've been to that church. I haven't been there in a minute.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Probably a good thing.
One
Let's
time-
end this. Show's over. We're going.
One time, occasionally I had some guests or some friends. I took them there to the Bush Company, and I got to know a couple of the gals that they were nice and friendly. And so one time, meanwhile, I transferred to Hawaii to manage for Prince Hotels in Hawaii. I was in charge of that, and so I had some Japanese staff here that working here. And one day they went to the Bush Company, and then apparently these gals. They met them there, and they were talking, and they said there with Alyeska. Oh, Alyeska, we know Chris Von Imhof. I got a phone call email. They know you.
Come on down.
He has this spot right over here in the corner.
Yeah, the Von Imhof.
And I didn't cover that in my PowerPoint presentation, sir.
That was the off the record.
No, it's okay nowadays. It's harmless, It
That's right.
didn't kill anybody.
Did we finish the sale of the resort to Seibu? Did you finish that part of the story?
No, we didn't. It was in the late 70. I mean, in 1980. I was. At that time, Alaska Airlines, which, by the way, in the 70s and the 60s, we called them elastic airlines. They were really struggling financially. They were close to bankruptcy quite a few times, and I had to pretty well, as I describe also in the book, to hawk real estate to order to be able to finance a chairlift, and it was because it's Chris, you're on your own, because we got enough problems,
Right.
and only then. But in the late 70s, they had a management change, and that time. They focused really on the airline expansion and so on. So in 1980, I get a call from my boss, the chairman of Alaska Airlines, Ron Cosgrave and Bruce Kennedy, and And they said, Chris, we want you to talk to you, come down to Seattle and for a board meeting. And so then they said, Chris, we really want to focus on the airline expansion. And they gave me a very nice compliment and also some bonuses just because they really were happy that how much we made progress over there. We built the 3-4 chairlifts. We put the night lighting in. We put the old Alyeska Nugget in. It's all in the book. But so they were able to be able to ask a decent price at that time. But they said, Chris, we'll give you first option if you want to put together some financing. And I loved the resort, and I would have loved to buy it, but I knew it required a lot more capital to really do it right. And I had been exposed to enough other resorts and so on, and I knew the challenges weather-wise and otherwise. And our market, we were not in the heart of America either, and sometimes I had to admit it. So after they said, Chris, or find an investor with deep pockets. So I had this, and I went for a week to Hawaii, and I really worked on all the numbers, and I had good connection with some people in the banking industry, but I knew it's going to really, in order to do it right, my goal was to really make it first-class resort, and we would have never had that fancy hotel if I had to finance it out of the pocket. It just wouldn't have happened. And
stairs.
So then I
there is a stairway to heaven.
so at that time, I decided it's better find someone with deep pockets. And we did at that time a lot of business in the 70s with the Japanese. We even Alaska Airlines had a representative in Tokyo, and I traveled about once or twice a year to Japan because that was a major out-of-state market because of the air crossroads, all the connections, the flights to Anchorage. So I got a hold of Tom Yanagihara was his name, a representative in Japan, and I told him, and since I knew this Seibu Princess Hotel, they owned these 27 skiers and the hotels in Japan, I said, this would be a company that may be interested to. And so we put a fancy brochure together, and really showed, amongst other things, the Japan Airlines at the airport, big times, and talked about the Winter Olympic bid, which we were involved in. And so, because in Japan, our owner in 2 areas where he had investment in Sapporo, they had it, and then in Nagano. Nagano belonged actually to Seibu Princess Hotels. And so he had an idea about the Olympics. And, well, anyhow, to make a long story short, after we made the presentation in Japan and with my interpreter, and then went back, and then a few months later, I got a contact that they're going to send a 4-person team to Alyeska from Japan, from the Seibu Princess Hotel. So the ski expert, lift expert, finance expert, and hotel expert, and well, the finance expert was also a close friend of the owner, and so they came in April of 1980, and I took him around and wined him and dined him, and by helicopter went up check out the mountain, and I explained to them, took him through, of course, Anchorage, to the political mayor and everybody and the tourism people, and so I had them a whole week. Then the last day of their visit, I said, I'm going to host a dinner at my home. I had a nice big rustic home at Alyeska on Davos Road, and so I ordered king crab legs from Kodiak. And then I had a big pot of king crab legs, and I forget now what we served, but with the king crab legs, I always like to make garlic butter, and that really tastes good with it, and my family, we had them already had by that time I had already 3 boys. All 3, Rudy, Chris Jr., and Fabian. They were born in 1969, 1972, and 1979, and so we and my wife had a dog team, Siberian Huskies. So when we had the visitors the last night for dinner at my house, we had 3 or 4 husky puppies in the house. The kids were crawling around, and especially the young one, Fabian. And in Japan, normally they always go out to these fancy commercial restaurants, and but to be invited to a home is a real honor.
Oh,
And
yeah.
something,
All
right?
right.
Yeah, that's my rep sent from Japan says, man, they'll love that 10 times more than they can go to any fancy hotel, restaurant, everywhere. So,
Yeah.
And it was funny then as I surfed the king crab lakes and they really had a good time. They were drinking by that time scotchy water.
Oh,
Japanese are pretty good drinkers, but they can't handle as much as a typical American European. Then they start get red in the face.
They
But
do.
but at that time we were drinking too much. We were still pretty. I was trying to be very formal, but as I surfed the king crab lakes, this one fellow Kobayashi says, "Chris-san, these king crab lakes are fantastic. They're beautiful, but I have one request. Do you have shoyu sauce?" Soy sauce.
Soy sauce.
They put soy sauce in pretty well everything.
Yeah.
And oh shit, I should have known better.
Yeah.
Serving my garlic butter.
One thing I don't have.
Well,
Okay.
I said, let me check. And I remember in the pantry I saw actually a whole can that I
For
had
your smoked
a long
salmon.
time. Thank God they don't spoil. So I always go in the pantry and come back out with that can of soy sauce, Kikoman, and you're
a hero.
and now they were happy. Now they had the king crab legs with soy sauce.
I've never had that.
I haven't either.
It sounds delicious,
Never
though.
even
does sound
crossed
good.
my mind. Actually.
And then as we finished the dinner, two of the guys gave me a high five. He says, well, this should put the deal together.
Come on.
So anyhow, but then it still took, because that owner, he was such a busy schedule, it took another 6 months before we got the word. It was in spring and April here. In fall, in September, October, I got the word. They decided to go ahead and buy it, and we're going to make a press announcement on I think October 1, in Anchorage at the mayor, the whole works, and I tell you, there are a lot of people that were happy. I'm not sure if you know one fellow very well known called Stumpy, Sewell Faulkner. He had Jack White Real Estate Company. And he was actually at that time one of the biggest realtor in Alaska. And he lived in Girdwood, was my neighbor. And he said, man, now we're going to really sell this real estate in Girdwood.
Oh, yeah, he's licking his chops.
Yeah. But it didn't go that fast. But anyhow, a lot of people really welcomed that because they knew the company when they read and heard about what investment they made. And the following year, then the owner came, Mr. Tsutsumi, and himself, and they took him around a mountain, and then we took him up the mountain on the Chelino one. At that time, there was we used it in the summertime for tourist transportation before we had any kind of tram.
Right.
And went up to the roundhouse, and he looked down there, and he stayed there in one of the condominiums right next to the Alyeska Nugget Inn. As we call it. And he thought the area was too small for a good sized hotel, and especially when he found out that summer tourism is actually more market than the winter tourism. Initially focused just on the winter part of it, and so then he says, Chris-san, if we can buy 60 to 80 acres of land down below the north face, we're looking from the roundhouse down the north face. Then we can build a big hotel, and by that time we already planned to build a 310-room hotel, and we can connect it with a Swiss tramway, because that's what he had in Japan and several. Okay. And I almost gave him a high five. I said, because that was like, that's your dream. But then with these shoguns, not supposed to do that. But but anyhow, I tell you, that's why I'm glad I didn't buy it, because I knew that
would have been hard to
no
do
one in
all
the world
that.
could do that sort of thing.
Yeah. And on his first visit, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and
sees
so
the vision right away.
But again, this is where I tell you that we could have almost lost that deal, because by that time even the economy in Japan was going down, and here was going down. We didn't get the Winter Olympics, and the city of Anchorage was screwing around for years and years, getting the final master plan approved and the final. And as I say, I was really worried about it.
Yeah, losing sleep over it, right?
Yeah, it really was. But then finally, when we made the decision to move forward with it, but because of the delay, then I was the only U.S. resort manager that Seibu had, and so meanwhile we're building hotels in Hawaii. And they're building the Maui Prince Hotel, and then later we built the Hawaii Prince Hotel. It's in the book. The Hawaii Prince Hotel, when I was president of Prince Hotels in Hawaii, that construction contract alone was $550 million. Can you imagine? It was a hotel with 550 rooms. I'm sorry, the $350 million was a 550 room hotel.
Okay.
And I have a picture of it of the signing party with all the officials. And I even looked behind to my attorney. He says, "Now, when I sign on behalf of Prince Hotels, is there a personal guarantee attached?"
Stamp it.
But anyhow, the reason I just mentioned that, in 1985, we had not gotten approval yet for building the Alyeska Prince Hotel. The owner and the company in Japan says, Chris, we want you to transfer to Maui until this project at Alyeska gets completed. Approval. We plan to open this new hotel, which was under construction ready. And but yeah, it's not a bad offer.
No.
Getting a beautiful resort property with golf course right on the beach. And I said, well, after all the years in Alyeska, I think I could handle it.
It's a nice change of scenery.
Yeah, yes. Instead of worrying about snow plowing, you worry about mowing the grass. And then,
But the mood swings with the snow, right?
So anyhow, yeah, exactly. So anyhow, that's when we made. So I transferred to Hawaii and brought my family over. My son Chris Jr. became a surfing bum. My older son Rudy, he had graduated from his last year at high school in St. Anthony High School in Maui, and so anyhow, we had the family there. And opened the hotel, and in the interim we had meetings about Alyeska because I was still involved, even though I was based now in Maui. And then a few years later I was transferred to Honolulu to be in charge of the hotel in the Hawaii Prince Hotel with. Which was even a bigger project, and
that one's on Waikiki.
Yeah, it's right there, right next to the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and next to the Ilikai.
The cut right there.
Is that the one with the Dukes in it?
The Dukes is right next door.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right next door. That's one of my favorite hangouts.
I like Dukes.
And but anyhow, so finally in 1988, 89, they approved the master plan and the construction could begin. But as I say, it was for Alyeska.
Yeah.
While I was but at that time I was very busy in Hawaii. I mean, it really was a big job. And,
I was booming
so,
too, right?
But then, so the company said, well, why don't you just stay until the construction is finished, and then we'll probably consider if you want to move back to Alyeska. And they had, in the meanwhile, a Japanese manager. When the hotel finally was finished in 94, they hadn't done really much marketing for it. And and then it was opened in fall, which is not the best time of the year to open it. And then I had staffing challenges because so I even sent part of my Hawaii team to Alaska to help with the opening of the hotel. And then I in that winter I went to Christmas vacation. I came over and the place was beautifully built. It's a beautiful hotel. Just like all the cherry wood in there. We had the market on the entire cherry wood in the Alyeska Prince Hotel. It's all the interior. Yep. And they didn't spare a lot of money till the tail end. Then they started really getting tight. But anyhow. So then I could tell the Japanese manager called me, Chris, can you please request to transfer back to Alyeska? And
they needed you back.
Yeah, they at that time, because I had the connection with the tourism industry, with the airline industry, since I was director of tourism, etc. And I could tell that it hadn't been marketed. And in Japan, they can have a hotel and they can fill it up in no time because of the huge population.
But,
but we are not right in the heart of America either. And So then I submitted a business plan and a marketing plan, and went to Japan and said, I'm ready to go back, since I convinced you initially to buy the resort at Alyeska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that needs the help most. The hotel at the Hawaii Princess especially was doing 85% occupancy, good average rates, and I had a pretty good life. I had to be on the golf course more often than.
Pretty hard to give that up, wasn't it?
You're like, let's build a golf course in Girdwood next.
Anyhow, so I requested a transfer to go back, and they were so relieved and so happy that, because they initially didn't really want to tell me, because some people considered it almost like a demotion, because here was, but I said no. And then we had the farewell party in Hawaii, and that the whole ballroom, 350, 400 people there, and I made a PowerPoint presentation about Alyeska and the pictures and the heli skiing and the summer and the fishing and the flying and then some people, now we can see why you like Alaska.
Yeah.
And, so that's when I decided
You just
to come
played the
back
Super Bowl video again?
along the same concept.
Let's take another quick break and we'll be right back.
Tailored Restoration, 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Tailored has an emergency response number with trained professionals available to help you at any time, day or night. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Make an appointment today at tailoredrestorationalaska.com. Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience. At Total Truck, you can find brands such as ARE, RSI Smart Caps, Goose Gear, iCamper, Front Runner, Rigid Lights, Rhino Linings bed liners, and everything you need to outfit your truck or SUV. Alaska Overlander provides 4x4 vehicles and expedition trailers, custom modified for Alaskan adventures and outfitted with rooftop tents, fridges, and all the camping and cooking gear you need to start exploring. Visit them at alaskaoverlander.com. Okay, so I've got, as we talked about earlier in the show, I found the, well, I don't know if this is actually it. I take that back.
Oh, you found the Super Bowl commercial?
Yeah, I thought I did, but I need to see if I can. Term Super Bowl commercial 1960. Was it 67? No, that wasn't it. I thought I found it, but no, I didn't. Damn
Does it say Alaska Super Bowl commercial? Alaska Tourism? Okay, Super Bowl commercial. Maybe don't put 1967 in there.
Yeah, I did that earlier, and then Jack corrected me with the 1960s.
Alaska Tour? I mean, look what's popping up under there.
Alaska Super Bowl commercial.
We're going to wait until Sunday to show you the big game. Scroll down. Scroll.
Let me just pull this up. Let me try one more time. So it pulls up the best Super Bowl commercial in 1967, but not Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Then there's Alaska Safety Dance Super Bowl. That's not it.
Go to that. Go down. Go to the Wikipedia list of 1967.
Maybe it wasn't in 1967 then.
Yeah. I thought I found it. I had a little.
We'll put in
little
one day
upset.
before or after and see.
Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, we got to find that.
Yeah, man. Damn it.
See if you're looking for it, Jackie.
Yeah, I am. It'd be nice to know what year it was. If it wasn't 67, maybe it was 68 because that would be the end of the 67 year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You put 86.
Or it might have been the year
whoops.
before. If
What
they're
year was
marketing.
Chris? What year was the commercial?
It was in 1966 and 67.
66, 67. Okay.
66.
I'm going to get another book. Can I keep the door open when I go down?
Oh, just come. We'll get the book later. We'll get it after.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get it after.
Sit back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get it after. We want to watch this. We got to find this commercial.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep digging, you guys. We'll continue on with our.
Well, do you remember
amazing
what it was
conversation
called,
with
Chris?
It was a State of Alaska tourism commercial. But,
Okay. Yeah. Alaska.
Everyone's Googling it now, listening.
We're gonna find it first.
We're going to find
Super
it and
Bowl
play it.
6 commercial?
What?
back
No.
far?
Let's see, Alaska Super Bowl.
You're almost a little skeptical.
Super Bowl tourism commercial?
Anyway. Chris, have a seat right back down here. We're going to get you going.
Alaska Airlines, they're all more current.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
are,
they're all current ones. Damn, I thought I found it. Son
How about this one, Chris?
maybe, is that one it?
No, that was in 2010. Yeah.
Well, that's just when it was posted on here.
Okay.
Well, we'll try to find it and we'll embed it
Yeah.
there.
That one's older, but I don't know how old. All right, we're gonna find it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll find it.
All right. Everybody relieve themselves?
Yeah. So who was the first person, Chris, to give you the title Mr. Hospitality? Was there one individual who just started calling you that?
Well, in
We'll bring that mic a little
Alaska,
closer there.
actually, they referred me more as to Mr. Alyeska. And was when I went in Hawaii, and then
Hey,
when we
Chris?
opened at the Hawaii Prince Hotel, and I was featured on Hospitality magazine.
Oh, okay.
And then they by that time, that's when the name stuck, that would be Mr. Hospitality.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Put your ears on. Yeah. Yeah.
Can't just talk to myself.
No, it's okay. Yeah, pull the mic up. There we go. There we go.
We'll talk to you all
We
day.
gotta get that beautiful voice and accent right in the mic.
Yeah.
We just want the
Come on
listeners
now.
to
Give
hear
us
you.
a Z World.
We need the
Z World.
All right. Yeah. Let me. I'm gonna just start doing a little behind the scenes research here. So, Mr. Hospitality, that is. Was that like post Hawaii?
Well, it was actually during Hawaii, because I was named in 2000 and forget what year it was. In 2006, I was named by the American Hotel Association as a U.S. Resort Executive of the Year. For
Okay.
every state in the country submitted submission, and
Like a vote or
yeah, so then
Okay.
they submitted. So at that time, I had the support from the governor to my executive housekeepers and everybody else, and so that's when it really starts sticking. That wow, yeah, just like here in Alaska, I get the award of Alaska Business Hall of Fame, but that's not as prestigious, maybe compared to being the top man in the U.S. As far as hotel is concerned.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of started getting my reputation, but. That's a long time ago now.
Did the training that you did in Paris and the European schooling on being a hotel executive come into play in that, or was it more like real life experiences?
It was more, even though my international background definitely, and the experience back in Europe, including, like you say, in Paris, I worked at the Plaza Athénée for a while. But I think it was more or less that both in Alaska and in Hawaii was not only that running the hotel and the resort. I got involved in the local community a great deal. I was, here president of the in Hawaii, president of the Hawaii Hotel Association and chairman. And the same here. When I came back to Alaska from Hawaii, I introduced Hawaiian Alaskana rates in our hotel at Alyeska, and. Then I brought an idea back, which we had quite a few, called the Visit Industry Charity Walk, and because that was very traditional in Hawaii, but we didn't have it here, so I convinced. That's my wife in Germany.
Oh, in Germany.
oh,
We're live.
Bikini.
welcome to the conversation.
Okay.
We're on podcast. And someday, I'm telling a few lies, so please.
Don't bust them out. Don't bust them out.
Like drama, I don't tell any lies, I tell you.
But I told him now who is the one who convinced me to write that book. It was you. It was all your fault. Well. Do you want to say anything to these podcasters?
I would say good morgen. I'm still in my morning gown. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, so please forgive me for not be on top of my
They call that morning beauty, okay?
Yeah.
Morning beauty.
Yes, good.
You're enjoying...
I hope he tells only good things about me. Otherwise, I should be interfering badly.
I guess you have to listen to the recording.
Yeah. All wonderful.
Okay, I can't wait to hear the result.
Well, I'll let you know once they edit it. They have to really edit a lot.
Professionals, surrounded by real professionals.
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Okay, baby. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll call you later, huh?
Okay, ciao.
Ciao.
Yeah, she's in Munich right now. Even though we got our place in Austria, but she has a place in Munich as well.
That was perfect, man. You would have almost thought we planned that.
I wonder what she's eating right now.
Not to go negative, but how's the temperature there, the feeling of people there with what's going on in the world?
Well, they're pretty damn worried about this Ukrainian war, especially. Interesting enough, the home that Brigitte and her sister own, it's a big family home there, but it was a fairly old one. So they were just last year ready to renovate it and start fixing up. So then the Ukrainian war broke out, so then they decided to hold off for another year or so and hosted 2 Ukrainian families, which
that's awesome.
Was greatly appreciated by the government and by the families that we had. So, but overall, to answer your question, there is concern because they're even much closer to the war zone.
They are.
Zone than here. Than we are here, we just don't know, how many crazies that are ready to push the buttons, and I just hope they have restrictions similar like our U.S. government that they couldn't just tell that the one guy give the order to the general, and at least here we got the checks and balances.
That's
the president alone could not decide to. But it is definitely a concern, and people have become more cautious. So I just hope that it. I don't know what the solution is, even though I think Putin will not try to give up, and the Ukrainians they are there, but I respect them a hell of a lot more than the Afghanistan people. They're fighting for what they believe in, the democracy. Here, America was for 20 years in Afghanistan, and then had billions of people, and lots of people got killed. Yep. And then towards the end, when they're ready to move out, because I read a book that both were Trump and the Biden and everything before, and when Bush got involved in it, but here, when at the end, when they were ready to pull the troops out of Afghanistan, the president of Afghanistan says, "Yes, our troops are ready and they're willing to take over." And sure enough, the minute they pulled out, and which unfortunately didn't go over as well either. He fled. The president fled the country, and the troops laid down their arms and gave it to the Taliban. And now they're complaining that the poor women that they're being discriminated against and so on. There, I feel I have absolutely no love and respect. Whereas in Ukrainian, they're fighting for what they believe in, and they're putting their life on the line. It's my little political speech.
Great. We don't normally get too political in here, but I was just curious since you have family there and a home there, and it's pretty close there.
Closer to home there.
Real close. Yeah.
I had a kind of random question, and I don't know if you want to answer it, but I was curious on how do you got that scar on your ear?
Well, I'm over there in Europe. I'm telling there's a bear that bit me, and
There you.
nibbling on your ear. Okay.
I got
Not too close to your fish.
I got lots of attention, and but I fortunately it had a little what do you call it, a melanoma there.
Oh, okay.
That's not as good of a story.
I like the bear nibbling on your ear. That was a little bit.
I thought it would have been the helicopter story.
No, I had a helicopter crash, amongst others.
Is it in the book?
It's in the
It's
book.
in the book.
Okay.
I should tell you three or four close encounters that had. Of course, the earthquake I already talked about before.
Yeah,
And that
that's
was
one.
it was number 2 in 1970. In January of 1970, I had a company house right next to the resort, the base ski area, and I was up at the office, and we had our one son, Rudy. He was only 10 months old at that time in 1970 in January. And my wife just went over to the day lodge to look for a babysitter. And it was a cold mid-January day, and somehow the fireplace was on, but we had screens there. But somehow, apparently, a spark must have gotten out.
An amber popped out.
And we had a polar bear rock there nearby, and it's somehow... And the next thing, I get a phone call from somebody say, "Chris, your house is on fire." And I dashed out. Thank God, it was only about 200-300 feet from the company house to my office, and I ran down there, and the whole front side of the house was really burning, pretty strong. And then I didn't know where Nina, my wife, and my son is, and just at that time she. Nina comes, my wife comes out of the day lodge, said, my baby. And then I knew that Rudy was in there. And so then my foreman, mount manager, and a couple of ski patrol heaved me in the back of the, up through the window, and I knew where the
Baby crib
is, and I crawled on the floor, but it was smoking, it was black smoke, and I had to be way on the, and try to not take any breath,
Right, and stay low.
And stay real low, and did manage to find the crib, and I was so relieved to find Rudy there and put him in there, and turned around, I couldn't see a thing. I got almost disoriented because I took a little bit of a breath, and then I slowly crawled around, and thank God my mount manager, he was on the ladder, and he was swinging his arms back and forth, and I just happened to lift up, and I touched his hand, and then I knew that it was by the window, and then he pulled me a little bit up, and I handed him Rudy, my 10-month-old son, and then I collapsed, and just about, and so he immediately handed Rudy to some other ski patrollers, and he came down and pulled me out from the floor and pulled me through the window, because by that time I was
you were out. Yeah.
So that was very, very, very close to being a goner. And then in 1973, in April of 1973, I had a beautiful winter day there, so I said we had an extra helicopter on standby for some work, and so I said I think we need to do some research, some market research, I called it. Let's go up to Turnagain and check out the slopes by Tin Can, and asked several of the ski patrol, mountain manager, the U.S. Forest Ranger Chuck O'Leary. I said we'll go, and so we headed there, and we flew up to the top of Tin Can mountain there in Turnagain, and made a few runs, and then helicopter picked us up down below, and it was sunshine. It was late afternoon, around 4 o'clock, bright sunshine, and the pilot picked us up in the field there, and took off, and he didn't see the main power line till the last second. The main transmission line that runs from the one side across.
Wow.
And the very last second, he veered to the left and severed with the rotor one of the 3 cables. Amazing that the rotor didn't fly off, because these are thick.
Oh, yeah.
And the bubble burst. I was sitting next to the pilot up in front. The battery up in front, and burst, but he was able to keep it upright, and we had a hard crash landing, but upright. I got some injury in the face, but thank God we didn't. If we had hit more than one of the two lines, we would have been electrocuted because
It would have zapped you.
The face.
And I tell you, later when the NTSB and the FAA, when they interviewed the whole story, said, "You're so lucky that they have even several airplane accidents in that same region." Well, nowadays, every time I go up to Turnagain and hit there towards Seward or so, I look up these red balls.
Yeah.
And I think these could have been my red balls up there. And I crossed myself.
Name that one after me.
I tell you, we were so lucky to come out alive on that one. And then the last one of the more significant ones, there are a few others, but in 1978 we had the first spring carnival at Alyeska. It was the busiest weekend we had in the whole winter season. There was a 3-day event, and first time we also had the Slush Cup as part of that spring carnival. And
That was the first year of it?
Yeah, 1978, yeah.
Okay.
And the very first time we did it in April 1, 2, right around that beginning of April. So had a busy period, and I was exhausted by the end of the Sunday, and I went back to the house after the Slush Cup was finished. At that time, we had it normally on Sundays. It was the last event of the spring carnival, and I went to bed early, about 9 o'clock, and then my wife Nina and her brother were watching a movie. The kids all went to bed ready. And that was in '78. That was when her two, Fabian wasn't born yet. And then right around 11:30, three guys with masks came into the house. And first, my wife and her brother were still in the TV room down below. And initially, she even thought that it's kind of some kind of spring joke. And when he slapped her, and then he knew that was not going to be. And he told her if she makes any loud noises, she's going to really be going to be knocked down. And so they tied them up down below, and she warned them and says, "My husband, he's a very excitable person." So when I woke up, they had two guys from each side of the bed, and Chris Jr. was actually he went to bed and stayed on the other side of my king size bed, and he was
he's like 6 or something then, right? Yeah.
And so anyhow, and the way I woke up with two guns against my head, can you imagine? It is absolutely frightening. And so they came for 3 reasons. They wanted to get the keys to the offices for the business office, because they knew that's where the main safe was with the majority of the deposits. At that time, we didn't haul it away right away on Sunday. Said
right, all stacked up.
Number 2, they wanted to get the alarm system layout and then the safe combination. That's why they came down to
you directly,
capture me to. And I thank God I had been at a meeting with the insurance company on some other business just about 3 months before. He says, "Don't ever try to play dead here. If anyone ever robs you something, give them the money. Don't it's not worth to fight it." And because I normally my instinct is to fight it.
Sure.
From my old U.S. Marine Corps.
Sure. Yeah.
But
not laying down easy.
Anyhow, so. We gave him the information. Well, my office manager had changed the safe combination. And because when we had staff turnover, they changed it. And I had an old one in my wallet because I hardly ever myself got into the safe. And so I gave them the old one, and that didn't work. And they came back down, and I thought this time they're going to shoot me.
They're angry.
I just explained to them that they went then back up and with crowbars and dynamite. They managed to get that thing. And it was at 2 or 3 in the morning by that time. And they got the money out of the safe, and then they also hit up the night auditor in the hotel at the Alyeska Nugget Inn, and so
got the cash drawers.
Yeah, and make a long story short too, it's also in the book, and they escaped, but if they had been smart, they had just hidden in a cabin for a day or two till all the smoke blew over. But they decided to head towards Anchorage. They were from Bird.
One way in, one way out.
They were from Bird Indian, and so But my night auditor, he was not guarded. We, myself and my family, we were guarded with one guy with he didn't have a gun, he had a big knife. The others, the two with the guns, they headed up to the offices to raid the safe. But my night auditor, they hit him up too and then threw him in a hotel room, but he was able to free himself. Actually, I was able to get my wires, they wired me too. But I would have taken a chance for my family.
Yeah.
But the night auditor was able to call the troopers, and then and the trooper first went to the hotel, and by that time they already had fled the hotel. And
this would have been the Nugget Inn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the old Alyeska Nugget Inn. And then anyhow, then they. Apparently, he heard some screeching wheels somewhere, and they were just heading down to pick up the guy that was guarding us at the house.
Oh yeah.
And then they're gonna take off. I tried to engage the guy with a conversation, even though he had a mask on, and try to figure out who the hell this guy is. Anyhow, but one of the guys, how stupid it is, he was trying to. They were monitoring the police channel. Interesting enough, so he decided to abandon the car and just. But they were from India and they were trying to get back, and so the one guy was with the backpack heading down, and then in a traffic jam, he was just in the ditch there, and some people said there's some guy, some people that were commuting, they said walking in the backpack in the middle of the night towards Bird, and so the trooper Bill at that time, he managed to get up there, and sure enough, the guy was there, and in the meanwhile, they had also requested helicopter support, and just as the trooper got to that guy and then told him to stop and come out there, come up there. The guy came with his hand in the jacket. And trooper Bill just could just say, helicopter, this is a dangerous situation, and the police come. And at that time, the helicopter just came over there, and it came down, and he, the trooper Bill, he thought he might have very well, he could have shot him. He had a loaded gun.
Yep.
And he had the backpack with most of the money. And anyhow, they got actually more in trouble for kidnapping the family than for the theft.
For the theft,
Right.
Yeah, because kidnapping is even much more of a
crime.
serious crime.
Right.
So they thank God they did get that guy. I tried to identify the guy that guarded us, and I knew absolutely it could by voice recognition. But my wife and her brother, they said, yeah, we think it is, but that wasn't clear enough. But I said, yeah, that's the son of a bitch. But 1 out of 3 identified him as a guard. But he got away with minimum problems. But the guy that with the card with the money and so on, and he got into jail for 6-7 years. And then I was in Hawaii by that time, and then. Asked if they should release him, and well, if you can keep him longer, it was. But it turned out to be he was a carpet layer, but did the carpet in our business office where the safe was.
Inside job.
And while he was doing carpet laying, the crew came back and forth, and the safe was opened and closed, and he saw the money.
They witnessed the whole thing going on through the day.
One guy saw it. There was not during the spring carnival, but before.
Yeah, right.
And
so they built the job up.
Yeah.
And I tell you, and it was close.
You guys got lucky.
That was again another close call.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was in the book. It says A Nightmare in a Ski Town.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's in the book.
How much money did he have?
He had about 85,000, which was in checks, and about 40,000 in cash. Was mostly checks. There wasn't too much credit card at that time still.
Yeah.
I wonder what the decision on the slush cup night, why they decided that night.
Because that was the final of the weekend, and I guess they had enough information that we normally don't haul the deposits until the following Monday, so they just waited till the busiest weekend was over, and I changed that rule in a hell of a hurry, and
I bet you did.
Years ago I even hauled it the deposit myself and just had a gun under my seat. But I no longer did that after that.
You started having armored transport take care of it.
Yeah, at Loomis. Yeah.
Wow, those are incredible.
So
stories.
those were the few that as a chapter devoted just to close calls and including the nightmare in a ski town.
Yep.
I like the rankings that you had on those. I mean, they were kind of hard to rank them. But I see why the last one was number one, because the family was involved on that one. Those were not necessarily individual, even though the baby was in the house fire. Did the house?
Those are chronological
order.
Chronological too.
Yeah, I put in chronological order the way it happened.
The home, were you guys able to salvage the home, or it
burned down to the ground?
Oh, that's devastating.
And bullets were flying. I had a bunch of bullets in my and they were just flying left and right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
For everyone that hasn't read the book, you should read the book, because the adjectives Chris uses to describe like how he looks when he comes out of that, and all these different scenarios are wonderful. And they're for the book though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just in case later you want to know, there's a website on this book. And you can order it off the website, and Chris Jr. will fulfill your order. And
okay, all right.
And when I left him today, come to the podcast, and don't forget to mention your website, which is www.chrisvonimhof.com.
Okay, there it is.
All right.
Can't forget that one.
and with that, you can contact them, and they will send you the book. So
he'll go down in the garage, pull one out of a box, and throw it in the mail.
All right.
So I got my. Please tell him that I did get my.
You gave him a plug. All right.
Okay. Yeah, we got it. Is that the only place that someone can buy a book?
No, it is in all kinds of stores. Like I has quite a few book signing at Costco for a while. And, at what's it now, Barnes and Noble, and at Alyeska's gift shop, and then for the Europeans they buy it on Amazon.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right, lots of places.
You should tell us a little bit about your full name. I was just stunned, when I read about your full name.
Yeah, it's a long one, but kind of a little aristocratic background, and but it's Christoph Herbert Reinhard Freiherr von Imhof. And Freiherr is like a step above Baron, and so this is part of
a step above Baron.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
But in this country, you can't buy anything for it.
So do you use it at home, though? Or do you use it back in Germany?
Over there, they still, Mr. Von Imhof or Baron Von Imhof, or whatever they call it. But even nowadays, don't do it. But over there, a lot of people are still very proud of their titles. But when I came over here, even Christoph, when I came over here, became a U.S. citizen, they cut the Toff off, and I just ended up Chris. And then over there said,
right.
How come not Christoph? He said, well, they thought it was too damn long.
That's funny.
You have an amazing memory.
Yeah.
You have a very good memory.
Well, thank you.
Remember everybody's names and then dates.
That's important
seasons
in the business, And who first were really practicing when I was working as director of tourism for Governor Egan, and he says, Chris, the people are always very impressed when you greet them, meet them, and call them by name. And so one time I was flying with him from Juneau to Petersburg, where they had the Sons of Norway festival, and so he wanted to know all who he's going to meet him at the airport, and so I had checked this all out in advance, and I accompanied him and a couple other people and on the aircraft. But so I had the list from the mayor and his wife and the tourism people and a couple of people, the fishermen, et cetera, et cetera. So I had about half a dozen people that are going to welcome him. And then I also found out that the mayor's had a dog named whatever, I forget now what it is. See, I forgot.
I'll give you a pass on that one, Chris. I'll give you a pass on that one.
But at that time, as we flew over, I gave him the briefing, gave the list of the names and who he's going to meet at the airport, and And so when he got there, he greeted them all, and just after he got through finishing talking to the mayor, I said, "And how is your dog?" Whatever his name was. Oh man, he was
You know my dog.
but so at that time, I always reminded that's important. Try to
The little things.
remember the names that I know with a lot of staff when I managed the resorts in Hawaii and Alaska. And then I've tried to remember staff and guest name, of course. And I think it makes often a difference when you show that you really take some interest in there.
That's great. Before we kind of wrap it up, is there maybe a story that didn't make the book that you thought of, like, oh, I forgot about that one, that maybe you could share with us, or did you get them all in there?
Well, I got a lot of stories in there, but not all of them. One thing when I had once a book signing event in Alyeska, where a whole bunch of ladies they wanted to get a briefing. They had already got the books, but they had questions. So, and then I had one picture that is not in the book, but they had read already the book. That's when it shows me that I was jumping on the diving board at the old Alyeska next to the condominium. We had a swimming pool,
Right.
And I, from the 3-meter diving board, I jump and I wish I had brought that picture with me because they gave me hell. I didn't put that one in because it looks like I'm flying over the condos. Maxis Mountain, you can see the distance in front.
Oh, cool.
Front, and afterwards, when I showed them the picture, how come that's not in the book? That would have been
Iconic photo.
But I try to put in the highlights, but there were times that I tried not to dwell too much on the difficult challenges, and especially in the
had to be a lot of them,
70s.
challenges.
So when I talk about the book, I will talk about the peaks and valleys, and because that's really that's what I experienced.
In the description, it specifically says the peaks and valleys.
Yeah, exactly, because
Of your
that's what
journey.
I'm running a resort, with the ski area. Of course, some people think of a woman, and that has also peaks and valleys. But
Yes.
I think we got a podcast name.
Now we do.
Yeah.
Do you still get out and ski?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Not as much as I used to. I had both my knees operated, got new knees, and so it slows you down a little bit. But Nordic skiing as well as alpine, but only now I'm waiting until the groom slopes, and it's come springtime. I'm a fair
There you
weather
go.
skier.
There you are.
Yeah. Bluebird.
And then over
Wait till it's warm and lots of daylight.
in Europe, we got a couple of e-bikes, and especially going through
Oh,
all the
yeah.
all the hills, and then you get to the top of one of those mountain areas, and there's great restaurants, great food, and but nowadays I don't have to. When it's really gets steep, you put turbocharge.
There you go. I had a question I was thinking about as you were, talking about the history of everything you've done. Probably a hard question to answer, but a man with your history and knowledge, experience, what you've done, what would you say is like the pinnacle of your career?
I appreciate you asking that question, and believe me, there were many highlights, but I still felt when I was president of Prince Hotels Hawaii and opened up the Hawaii Prince Hotel as president, and we had pictures of it there, and I was chairman of the Hawaii Hotel Association, and then I got the U.S. Resort Executive of the Year award. I think for a little young bellboy that started at my uncle's hotel, that was kind of the top of it.
The top.
But then at the same time, I also take a lot of pride here with Alyeska Resort over the years, because when we started out, it was just a little local skier with very little business and very little profitability, and over the years. But that was a more longer process. But I was glad to see that we were able to build this beautiful resort hotel.
Yeah, I appreciate your candid answer. I kind of figured it would be Hawaii because, why not? It's Hawaii.
Yeah, man.
But it's amazing how it came full circle back from that pinnacle back around to Alaska, kind of where it all started, and maybe where the most blood, sweat, and tears might have been.
The most what?
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
Absolutely, no question about it.
The most valleys.
There were a lot of valleys.
This long climb, 25-year climb.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, Chris, and taking your time and sharing your history and what you've done for Alyeska and the tourism industry and Alaska in general, and sharing and creating the book, because that's quite a task to do that and leave that history for the generations to come to see the peaks and valleys of your life.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Was a real fun interview. I've gone sometimes there were some very structured ones where you had this all scripted, and this was a pleasure to.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to be a fan of podcasts.
All right.
Man. Yeah, we showed you how to work the app before we started, so now you know how to download them.
Yep, he's there.
That's right, man. Yeah, thank you so much for coming in, man.
And you let me know once you edit it because I can notify people when and where.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I actually text CJ because I have his number.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I said, hey, I happen to be one of the co-hosts on the show. He's like, oh, small world, man. I was
give him hell for being a no-show tonight.
I will, for sure.
I thought I misunderstood you that John was going to bring his son.
Yeah.
So if I'd known, I saw CJ earlier today because my daughter-in-law, she today had her U.S. Coast Guard ceremony.
Yeah, congratulations to her. She retired
after
Coast Guard.
21 years,
Wow.
Appreciate that service.
Congratulations to her.
But,
man.
they made me again proud of America. And as I say, I'm a U.S. citizen for a long time. And how they credit and all the service and all the years of... And I must say that they had wonderful presentations, and they got some beautiful plaques, and it made you proud that they recognize. And this is something also here. My wife commented in Europe. Soldiers normally don't get the respect or appreciation. Here, she always was amazed when you go on an airplane or somewhere and people say, thank you for your service.
That's right, every time.
I think to me that's where I'm a former
very honorable
U.S. Marine. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battle in the air, land, and sea. See, I learned that, but when I was in the Marine Corps in boot camp in San Diego and Camp Pendleton, except that drill sergeant says I was goose stepping, which is not true, but I'm a proud former Marine.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. I want to just say, I was thinking about my little brother. He's an old school snowboarder, and I think about the youth and folks that are out enjoying Girdwood and the mountain and Alyeska. Go read Chris's book, and I think it's going to bring a whole new appreciation to where and how that place was built and what it was built off of, and to give it the respect it deserves. And thanks to you, Chris.
Yep,
appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Still got a few more books for sale.
All right. We'll sell. Yeah, man. Chris, Girdwood's been my place, my happy place since I was a kid. Thank you. And now my kids get to grow up with it, and I get to share that with them. Thanks for bringing that to us. Well, it's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, all of you. I really appreciate your support, and so it was a pleasure to meet you. And sometimes if you come to Girdwood, maybe visit with John and CJ, and we'll have a nice refreshments.
I would love to do that.
We'll all do Slush Cup next year together, right?
Yeah, there we go.
One year, CJ and I together into the Slush Cup as Superman.
Really? one giant Superman?
This year we're going to both cross same time, but then they said it's dangerous in case you start flailing, the skis start propelling and so on.
Oh, I can't be having that.
That's great.
But the Superman didn't quite make it across.
No. Have you ever done it? You did do it? You made it?
Well, no. Not,
all right. You got wet.
I took too much of a jump instead of what you need to do. Right as you go to the lip, push your foot right down so that you don't. So you really
you go straight flat versus up high, right?
You want to really go flat, and
we want to make sure those knees are good for those e-bike rides. So take it easy, all right?
Thank you, Alaska, for listening. Once again, the website is chrisvonimhof.com to buy the book, and the book is titled
Today Alyeska Tomorrow Zee World.
Thank you, Alaska. And as always, stay wild.
You remember my speaking to you of what I call your overcautiousness. Are you not overcautious when you assume that you cannot do what the enemy is constantly doing?
The Alaska Wild Project podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Barney's Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. The exclusive home of frontier gear built for the rugged Alaskan terrain. Your one-stop shop for all your outdoor needs. Visit Barney's today at 906 West Northern Lights.
Tailored Restoration 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Hit them up at tailoredrestorationalaska.com.
Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience.
TheTreehouseAK.com, located at 341 Boniface Parkway, Alaska's own and grown cannabis and CBD store. Ask the bud tender what the strain of the day is to get your 10% off. The Treehouse, where the culture lives. AKO Farms, located in Sitka, Alaska, built from the ground up with concentrates as their single motivation, with exclusive products such as their sugar wax, full spectrum diamond sauce carts, and more. Ask your local bud tender about AKO. Marijuana has intoxicating effects and may be habit-forming and addictive. Marijuana impairs concentration, coordination, and judgment. Do not operate a vehicle or machinery under the influence. There are health risks associated with consumption of marijuana. For the use of only by adults 21 and over. Keep out of the reach of children, and marijuana should not be used by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding.
The Bait Shack, located on Ship Creek upstream of the bridge. Can't miss the bright red shack. They are the go-to fishing gear rental and guide service on Ship Creek. Tight lines and fish on. Come hook into the action with them. Hit them up at thebaitshackak.com.
Snow Pro AK, your snow and ice management company specializing in business and residential properties. They know what it takes to keep your property presentable and safe. Give them a call for a free estimate at 280-7098 or visit lawnproak.com. Double Shovel Cider Company, located off of Arctic and 58th, handcrafted Alaskan-made colonial ciders. They also have a tap room downtown on the corner of 5th and E. Stop by today and taste an award-winning cider.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaskan public lands, waters, and wildlife. Their goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping our public lands wild. Stand up today and join BHA at backcountryhunters.org.
Not claim to be at least his equal in prowess and act upon the claim? I say try. If we never try, we shall never succeed. This proposition is a simple truth, and it's too important to be lost sight of for a moment. If we cannot beat the enemy where he now is, we never can. It is all easy if our troops march as well as the enemy, and it is unmanly to say they cannot do it.